Good evening to our distinguished keynote speaker and the panelists, our council members of CMA Sri Lanka and participants. Let me welcome you to this CMA Sri Lanka CPD program on Export Performance 2021 and Future Challenges to Drive Exports and Economic Development in the New Norm. This is the second seminar that we are organizing under our theme, Getting Over the Debt Problem. The first one we had last week, which was on the international sovereign bonds, and was very well attended, and also we had very good speakers. So today also we are having very eminent speakers. They have sacrificed their valuable time and attending this very important seminar. CMA Sri Lanka has organized this seminar to project the importance of the export sector that has achieved US dollars 15.212 billion in 2021, surpassing the figures of 2020. This includes the main sectors of apparel and textiles, tea, rubber-based products, ICT, BPM, BPO sector, transport and logistics. And we also have the tourism sector, which is one of the ones that we are hoping will enable us to bridge the gap in our foreign exchange. With the challenges faced due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the unprecedented economic crisis, the only savior is expanding and providing all incentives and preventing bottlenecks of the export sector to earn the valuable foreign exchange to the country. All exports are totally carried out by the private sector and need to be the driving force behind the export strategy and its implementation in the country. So I'm indeed happy that the heavyweights of the private sector, of the export sector, are present here. As you know, we are facing a very difficult situation, but certainly all sectors have done extremely well, and we are hoping that in 2022 that we will be able to do much better, and I'm sure that all of those who are present here will tell you as to what they could achieve. Now, today's news report also mentions about the Honorable Minister of Finance stating that they are also preparing to have discussions with the IMF. I know it's a very good thing, because that very many have been saying and he has also stated that IMF team will be visiting Sri Lanka to have discussions. Of course, who comes, whether it is IMF or our friendly countries who are presently helping us, which in the day-to-day may be running, but we need to have a long-term plan, a long-term strategy which will pull us out of this situation. Today is also a very maybe an important day, because it's on the eve of our achieving independence. So tomorrow we are going to achieve the 74th or celebrate the 74th independence. And I don't, of course, have to say what we had earlier and how we have achieved, but certainly we have to look for the future. So today our keynote speaker will be Mr. Suresh Dimel, who is the chairman of the Export Development Board. Then we have, as I said, to join him, very eminent personnel from the export sector. So garments and apparels, we have Mr. Sharad Amalian, who is the chairman of the Joint Apparel Association Forum in Sri Lanka, and of course the deputy chairman of MAS. I know that they started their journey in 1991, and I remember both Mahesh and Sharad coming to sign the agreement with the BOI. So I think BOI has played a major role with the 200 garment factories, and today the largest exporter in this country is the garment sector. So I'm sure that Sharad will have a lot of things to say, and today he's heading the Joint Apparel Association and getting the support of all the apparel exporters in order to increase. Then on the manufacturing industry and covering the rubber sector would be Dr. Kulatunga Rajapaksa, the Emeritus Managing Director of the DSI Group, and one who is also having long years of experience and in building the DSI Group to be the largest manufacturer of footwear in Sri Lanka. Then we have on the BPO sector, Jehan Peripanayagam, the Vice Chairman of Strascom and CEO of Informate Private Limited, the John Keels Group Company. And I think the biggest export earner would be the IT BPO BPM sector. We should be able to do very well, but this also needs transformation in the education sector. So if we are able to train people, definitely they will all go into the IT BPO BPM sector and bring in many new investors to this country. And then not only the valuable foreign exchange, and India is of course an example where they were able to transform the various cities and give jobs to trained people. So I think the government needs to take a fresh look if they really want to build the industry with the knowledge capital that they always talk. Knowledge economy is only talk, but we need to put it into practice, and maybe like what we did in the garment factories, go to the villagers and give this knowledge to them and take it where we had the village girls manufacturing products and exporting. Similarly, we can have the village boys and girls going into the IT industry and exporting and giving value to our country. Then we have our moderator, Mr. Dinesh Veerakudi. I know that he is a very, very experienced person. He's the chairman of HR Cornucopia. He's a senior company director, and of course, been the chairman of 2 banks. He's held very, very high positions, and I'm sure that he is going to do the moderation, and I'm sure that he will be able to put very tough questions to all our speakers and panelists who are here. Then on the tea sector now, actually Mr. Sanjay Herat was due to come, but unfortunately he was unable to make it. But we also have the deputy or the vice chairman of the Tea Exporters Association, another association aligned to the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. And he is also the chairman of Eastern Brothers Exports Private Limited, who will be able to speak to us on the tea export sector, another very important area which is bringing in the foreign exchange. Then on the transport and logistics, we have Mr. Jagat Patirana. He is the director CEO of Expo Lanka Freight Limited, and also the administration manager of Expo Lanka. And you know that from the results that we have seen recently, Expo Lanka is really on the top of most of the companies in the public quoted companies. So they are doing extremely well, because I am saying extremely well because it's not the normal condition, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, they have been able to do extremely well. All these sectors are really that we need to praise them. We need to, I think a lot of them have got export awards recently given by the Export Development Board, and a lot of them are here. Then of course the tourism industry, we have the immediate past presidents of the Hotels Association of Sri Lanka and the chairman of Mount Lavinia Hotels, Mr. Sanat Uppatta. I know he is waiting for the right opportunity. When the COVID-19 goes down, certainly the hotel industry will be booming and will bring in the valuable foreign exchange. So these are our eminent panel, our eminent speakers who will have very good things to say to all of you who are present. And I'm sure that it will give a new opening in with the independence that is coming up. So it's a very, very timely seminar that we are having. And I'm sure that this webinar and the technology that has really transformed all of us. I was just speaking to a few of them who are here. Now they are saying that what the secretaries were doing earlier, now they are doing. So that has really transformed everyone and in doing their jobs. But I think this should has to go down to the government sector, maybe to the people higher up, the ministers and others, that they also look at it and see how we as a management accounting body want to see that costs are cut, expenditure is controlled, there is financial discipline, and also lean accounting. A lot of them say that we must now go on a lean diet if we are to survive. So we have to all take that into account and then see that we could take this country forward. So with those opening remarks, I now have great pleasure in inviting the chairman of the Export Development Board, Mr. Suresh Dimel, who is the keynote speaker. In fact, he is the one who inspired us to have this because he made a statement with the minister to say that 15.5 billion has been achieved. And I'm sure that we are looking at not 15, but maybe doubling it this year with the sort of panel that you have got. But they need all the incentives, they need all the encouragement, they need all the support. But if that is given, the private sector is there to see that this country can overcome all the problems that they're having and take it forward. Over to you, Mr. Suresh Dimel.
Good evening to everyone. I will be doing my presentation by clarifying or putting a little light on the export performance, because I think these numbers are quite confusing, because we talk about merchandise exports, service exports, then the combination. Then I get numbers as disaggregated exports. So I think it's important for us to look at the exports in context. And I would like to start by talking about the performance on a product-wise basis. So to start with, I think Professor Batawala already mentioned about the ICT BPM industry. That has performed the best right through, even through the COVID. Year on year, we have had significant growth. And I always like to look at numbers in 2019, 20, and 21, because many industries suffered during in 2020 and had big growth in 21. However, when we look at 19, 20, and 21, there are a significant number of industries that have continuously grown and had record growth and record export earnings. So looking at that, the ICT BPM industry has recorded $1.1 billion in 2019, $1.01 billion in 2020, and $1.29 billion in 2021. So between 20 and 21, there was a 27% growth, which was a growth year on year from 2019 as well. So being a thrust industry worldwide, I think we have to pay attention to the future of ICT BPM, because in our region too, it is growing fairly rapidly. So from our Export Development Board, it's one of our national export strategy thrust sectors, and we are looking at increasing IT-related graduates by expanding tertiary and vocational learning and introducing distant learning programs. We hope to set up universities or foreign satellite campuses in Sri Lanka to enhance advanced skill levels and local R&D capability. Then increasing the offering of knowledge process outsourcing services and enlarging the market outreach to provide BPM services and technical support to large multinational corporations. So that is a key sector as we go forward. Next down the line, the best performer over the last 3 years is rubber. Rubber industry has grown from 890 million US dollars to 1,092 US dollars in 2021. That's between 2019 was 890, 2020 we had a small drop to 816, but then again 2021 is the best year yet, and that is at 1,092 million US dollars. Now, how did that come by? I think it is significant for us to look at the disaggregated growth in rubber products. I think Mr. D.K. Rajapaksa can elaborate on that, but I will just say from the numbers, we had pneumatic and retreaded rubber tires and tubes, which went up significantly to record levels at 595 million US dollars in 2021. Then we also had an increase in our crepe rubber exports, which increased 69% in 2021. That is over the previous year, and that's at 28 million US dollars in 2021. So overall, the rubber went from 816 to 1,092 the last year. Now, the next most significant export is coconut products. And this is also obviously, coconut has been traditionally one of the best value-added exports from Sri Lanka. And the number one coconut cream has gone from 23 million in 2019 to 33 million in 2020 and 48 million US dollars in 2021. So there's been 100% growth in between 2019 and 2021 in coconut cream exports. The next most significant export in volume is spices. Now, in electrical and electronic components. Now, this is also a thrust sector for the Export Development Board and part of our National Export Strategy Thrust area. And we have 421.42 million US dollars, which is again a record. And we hope that there is more potential in that field as well, because we are strategically located in an area where this region is growing very fast, and value chain integration in electrical and electronic products will be a good thing for us to explore. So I just noticed I was right when I said spices. Spices actually was the third largest. It's in the wrong place on my list, but it was at 456 million US dollars, 457 million US dollars, and particularly cinnamon, which was #1, and black pepper, #2, and then the others. So that too, we have a lot more opportunity to value add, and we just got our cinnamon global indication, cinnamon GI as they call it, so we can call it Ceylon cinnamon now, and it's unique to Sri Lanka. And I think that is going to make a huge difference in the world market for cinnamon, where 80% of the world market even now is dominated by, or for true cinnamon is dominated by Sri Lanka. And now the important thing is for us to go to the high value markets and add value and send packaged processed cinnamon to European and American and other niche markets maybe. And the next high performer is food and beverages at 444 million US dollars. That continues to be a very important sector for Sri Lanka. I think His Excellency's announcement that Sri Lanka is going to be conscious on organic agriculture was very significant. I think in food and beverages and agricultural products, the most significant brand value we can get is from being organic. And I think that the world is looking at us now and to see how fast we are going to go there. And as an island, we will be a trusted organic producer. And we already have 12,000 farmer groups that are organic certified and 350 exporters that have been exporting for 30 years organic products from Sri Lanka. So we are a significant player in the international market in organic agriculture per capita. So that's the next significant increase was in seafood. Now, obviously, Sri Lanka is, we have a huge untapped resource in our seafood sector. And we are doing better. We have a record number at 274 million US dollars this year, over 190 last year and 263 in 2019. So that's an area that we are focusing on developing. There is also the aquaculture, shrimp production and so on that are performing very well. Then we have the smaller in total numbers, but quite significant growth in the ornamental fish area. We've had 60% growth and at 21 million US dollars. We've also had a significant growth in other products that don't fall under our traditional list. And that's at 1.4 billion US dollars. And last year it was 1.1. And in 2019, it was 1.2. So we are expanding in our non-traditional exports as well. When we look at the countries now, that's the list of products. And now I think it's significant to see which countries we have been exporting to. Our top 10 traditional export countries are still on the top of the list. But India was the big performer at 815 million. Second was Germany at 754 million. All of these have exceeded previous year's numbers. Italy at 579 million US dollars. The Netherlands at 426. Netherlands has increased more than most, where our exports to Netherlands in 2019 was 300. In 2020, it went down to 290. And now in 2021, it's up at 426 million US dollars. The next country is Canada at 313 million US dollars, over 213 in 2020, and 240 in 2019. So that again is a record number. And other countries is also significant. We've had a 4.7 billion US dollar exports to other countries that's beyond our top 10. And that's also significant because we want to diversify our markets. And that's, I said 4.7 billion, over 4.4 billion in 2019 and 3.8 billion in 2020. So that's, those are the export destinations. And maybe I have a little more time. We are looking at expanding in these areas as well as encouraging. We are encouraging the SME export development, which has been very challenging for Sri Lanka over the years, because when you look at SMEs, they're mostly in the agricultural area. They need to be empowered. They are vastly informal. We need to get them into, they are the small producers. We need to get them into associations, and we have this export processing village concept where we are attaching these villages to exporters and export houses, where we will have a responsible intermediary working with our producers and then improving the SME supply chains. That's absolutely critical. And that will, with the spices and agricultural product exports that are expanding rapidly, I think it will be very important that the private sector invest in this, and especially in post-harvest technology, which is lacking in Sri Lanka, where 50% of our fruits and vegetables are still going to waste with lack of post-harvest handling and so on. So we feel that we need to get away from our trader mentality to be more industrial and add value to our agricultural products especially. The other most important thing for our exports is labor. SMEs struggle a lot with labor because they are vastly informal, but even our large, I think Sherad can add some light to that. Every single factory that is producing for export is short of labor. We have to seriously think of reversing the brain drain and reversing the labor drain from Sri Lanka if we are to increase our manufacturing exports. And one of the areas that we are looking at with electronic and electrical components is that maybe we can pay higher salaries to those people, make them more productive, and pay and retain them in Sri Lanka. So we got to find manufacturing industries maybe that can pay a premium salary to our labor as well. So that's in a nutshell, what I have to say from my 1 year at Export Development Board and our strategy going forward. And I will look forward to any questions from the panel and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suresh. You laid the foundation, giving the various exports that are done. I'm sure our speakers who are here, they will be able to expand on what you said. But I just want to touch on the last matter you mentioned on the labor. That's a problem that is faced both from the export industry as also all the other sectors. And at the moment, according to what we have heard, there are the unskilled, then there are the semi-skilled and the skilled, almost 100,000 vacancies that are there. And from the discussions that we have had, this should be something that the government should take seriously to take to the Samurdhi families, because the government is just giving a dole, Now they have a lot of maybe young children who are there, who are unemployed. So if they can get the worker scheme, immediately 100,000 jobs can be created. I'm sure our speakers here, especially Sherad from the apparel sector, they will be able to talk about it. But I think that's a key area what you mentioned, and of course the exports have done extremely well. So let me also congratulate you in your 1 year of office, where you've been able to achieve a great deal. But we may have to double it in the next year. So you may have to put the same thing, because you are someone from the private sector, and you will be able to give the support to the private sector in this. So with that, now our first speaker will be Mr. Sherard Amalian. As I told you, he is one of the key sectors in our whole exports, almost 50% or maybe a larger amount from the garment sector. So Sherard, can I invite you to make your address on the garments and the textile sector?
Thank you, Lakshman. Hi, everyone. 2021, am I clear, Lakshman, to everybody?
Yeah, fine. Okay, yeah.
2021 was a challenging year for everyone. And the apparel and textile industry, despite all these challenges, exported came close to what we exported in 2019. And that is, we had in 2019, we were a $5.3 billion export company, organization, that is export garments. And in 2021, despite all the restrictions, closed down, freight issues, supply chain issues, we hit 5.1 billion. And I think that's a great achievement. I must thank the government for having considered the export sector as essential services during COVID. And that gave us the ability to function. And function meaning that customs, treasuries, banks, all that function allowed us to continue to work, continue to bring our employees in, manufacture, and continue to export. I must say that the resilience of the apparel and textile industry must be commended, because we continue to assure our customers that we will deliver, and we did deliver. I must say there have been issues with regard to on-time delivery. Our on-time deliveries really went down, but because of our relationships, which are not transactional, they are all they're all strategic strategic relationships that we have with our customers, and closeness that we have with our customers, and the brand, Sri Lanka brand as a country, to our customers, where we have delivered on, where during the time that we had the civil unrest in the country, we continued to expand, we continued to deliver. And so they knew that through COVID, we would continue to deliver. And that's what happened. So I would like to just remind everyone that we in Sri Lanka, the apparel and textile industry, employ directly 350,000 workers, and indirectly another 650. So in all, about 1 million people are involved in the apparel and textile industry. At JAF, and this is one very important aspect, during COVID, our one collective voice at JAF is a combination of 6 associations put together. And that is the buying office, small and medium scale, the 200 garment factories, the FTEZs, and other outside the FTEZ factories, all put together, 6 associations put together. But we have one voice and one collective decision making. And thereafter, we would go to the Labor Department, health industry, and to the government, treasury, and now to the central bank with the foreign exchange issues that forex issues, but one voice. And I think that is an important aspect of JAF and of the apparel industry. Very proud of what we have achieved so far, and very proud of last year's performance as well. Now comes what Lakshman wants us to talk about is development in the new norm. And so here's what I've got to say. Our goal for 2025 is set. We want to be a $8 billion industry. And we have worked with the previous government and this government in setting up a export processing zone for fabrics, because we realized, and this zone is coming up at Eravur in the east of Sri Lanka. Two textile mills are being set up there, and 3 more are on the drawing board. So my point here is that we have realized with COVID and with the growth having established the fact that we need to grow in Sri Lanka, the verticality is become very important. And that means that we have been working and will continue to work to have our supply chain closer to needle point. This has been a tremendous advantage for us during COVID, having our textile mills here and the supply chain in Sri Lanka. This will continue to be a focus for us, and incentives and the required approvals to continue to grow this have been passed by the government. I must say, our ethical manufacturing practices has set us apart. Even during COVID, Sri Lanka was known for its ethical practices, and first people to be given orders during the COVID as well as now has been Sri Lanka. And this is a brand and that we have worked very closely with our customers with and created. So our focus on ethical manufacturing practices will continue. We did speak earlier about, two speakers earlier spoke about talent, and we have to automate, we have to innovate, we have to be focused on increasing productivity in the same footprints. And that is something that we are working very, very strongly with. Our lean manufacturing processes that we have embraced are helping us to increase our productivity and retain our labor force, because they are more empowered and they are taking home a higher salary in the 8 hours that they are with us working. I must say that we are looking at this industry with a different lens after COVID. And that is purely because of what digitization has done to us. All our customers, their growth has been on online business. And so therefore, the brick and mortar stores and malls are not expanding or growing, but the online business is growing. And so what does that mean to us, right? The new norm is how do we, Sri Lankan manufacturers, connect with our customers, with our brands, and be on their platforms so that we are the first choice in terms of when a customer clicks an order, and all of us know, our children and everyone, the youngsters who are listening to this conversation, they're all online buying stuff. When you click an order, it goes straight to our factory in Koggala, right? Through the brand Calvin Klein. And Calvin Klein, we never export to USA. We might be exporting directly to Australia. So the whole environment is changing into a digitized world, and we have to make best use of the tools that we have got through digitization. So getting attached to our various platforms of our customers is the next phase of what we keep doing, of increasing the benchmarks in our industry. And so we are busy making sure that we are ready for this digitized business, that e-commerce that is taking place. I think it's important to also mention that Sri Lanka, as far as the apparel industry is concerned, right, when Lakshman Vatavela got along with President Premadasa, took us to the villages, right, was a contract manufacturer. We were contract manufacturers then. But today, right, today, we are not considered a contract manufacturer. We are total solutions provider. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that we do innovation with our customers together. We do product development with our customers together. We innovate together. Manufacture, supply chain, fabrics, everything, we give that. So that domain knowledge, which was resident overseas in the West, is now available in our industry in Sri Lanka. And we go beyond, and I'll tell you what we mean by beyond. We provide logistical support, meaning that we are now tying up with our logistics suppliers, and I'm glad Expo Lanka is here with us, has been a great partner with us, to see how we can take goods manufactured in small quantities to our customers' distribution center, or sometimes even directly to their stores, wherever it is located in the world. So our dimensions of business has completely changed. Our lens through which we look at business has completely changed. I must say that our location, and this is another thing that we talk about, our geographical location, and today we're really crafting out how the hub concept can be greater expanded on. And therefore, what I mean by that is we not only have Sri Lanka as a manufacturing base, but we have other countries in this region, Bangladesh, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka becomes the hub, the exporting hub, the distribution hub, where we pick and pack and send the goods across to our customers in this region, instead of them exporting it to USA and then again exporting it out to this region. So this hub, this geographical location, has to be seen as an advantage that we can make use of. And so we have in this next, in the budget as well as some amendments that are being made in the Hub Act, which will help us to become much more agile and flexible in terms of how we export our goods. And Jagat, you might be able to add something to this, where we make use of the hub to export small quantities to places like Australia and in this region through air freight or whatever, and meet our customer requirements, because business is being done by the Amazons and the platforms that are coming up with Alibaba and so on. The next thing I'd like to touch on is, for us, very important, and we are going to focus on this, is with regard to bilateral trade agreements. This is an ongoing subject. We have to nail some agreements down. We must make sure that our trade agreements and preferential trade agreements that we have been working on we see them to the finish line, and we ink these agreements so that so that we are able to have certain relevance and become relevant to our customers. I'm talking about the way Africa has got free trade agreement with USA and Europe, and their goods go duty free, and and uh, Bangladesh has got that to Europe, and certain other countries we will have to do with China and so on. So these agreements, the conversations have been going on, but we need to be taking them to the finish line. And we have, with Tuli Kure, told him that this is important for us to get done for the apparel industry. And he is working full-time, focused on seeing how he can work with the government to get these bilateral agreements and preferential trade agreements to the finish line. We also need to recognize that the GSP Plus, which is still available to us in this industry, has seen growth and has helped our exports to Europe. We are working with the government to see how, and we will start working with them to see how we can extend beyond 2023 when it expires. So this is another area where we need to work on to make sure that the new norm, we are able to get certain preferential treatments and GSP Plus extended. We are excited. We are excited because we have grown this business, this industry. There is a brand equity that has been created. We are seen as seen by our customers, high-end customers, as the place to go for their solutions for what I told earlier, a total solution involving, innovation. It involves product development. It involves sustainability. And I want to touch on this. Sri Lanka, we have had plants that our customers have come and endorsed as green plants. People have given us various certificates and awards for being sustainability, using sustainability yarn and products. So we are down on a path on sustainability, and that is the next differentiator we believe that the apparel industry will bring into Sri Lanka. And we're having all support from the government to make sure that this is something that we can drive and make sure that our customers, because our end customers will be in the next, we already find customers asking us, what are we doing with regard to recycling of plastics and so on and so forth. So this is coming. This is coming, and we will lead the way in that field. I want to end by saying we're positive. We see opportunity. We see opportunity in this region. We are so close to India and China. We will be failing in our duty if we don't really take this opportunity and embrace this opportunity and see how we can continue to export to these large populations, China and India. And being so close and geographically position ourselves to be the preferred choice for our customers to come to Sri Lanka and take our goods from here. With that, I'd like to say that I would like to thank Lakshman for inviting us here. And the only thing that we do have certain pain points, and these pain points can only be addressed if we collectively go together and address it with the government. Thank you very much, Lakshman.
Thank you, Mr. Sherrod Amalian. I think you said you are excited, but I think we are more excited than you are, because this type of story, I don't think we have ever heard, Sri Lanka, what the private sector is doing, what we all are doing. I think it's a very, very great thing. I don't think especially in the new normal, this is a great achievement, because I don't think even the government knows, or government should give the hearing, because when you when we listen to what you say on the digitization we have done, the various things on, especially on the bilateral agreements, because people are only thinking that free trade agreements are only for import. They really forget to say that this must be for export. That's how we have to talk. I think you are really talking the language. Government is borrowing, but you are going to repay their loans. You are going to export. Now, this is what you have to tell the government, because you are going to export. They are only borrowing. Tell them what you can do. But just one thing about the employment, I think you could not speak on that. You are having a problem because you can increase your exports. If the employer, the workers are available, can you just maybe briefly touch on that?
Yeah, Lakshman, thank you. I'm sorry, I missed out on talent. Talent in the apparel industry and the skill levels, the technical skill levels is right up there. When I say right up, we have over a period of time, our universities and vocational training centers and all in the apparel industry, all of us have our own training in our budgets that we set for ourselves, have a good big amount of training, in-house training that we do for our employees. Whether it is me or downwards, all of us go for human resource development, whether it's leadership, but more importantly, our technical expertise, as I said, is being poached. You go to Bangladesh, all good factories that are run there are run by Sri Lankans. India, the same. Pakistan also, we know about an incident there. They have our technical people. Africa, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Kenya, Sri Lankan technical expertise are running those plants. And that's something that must be registered. So what do? We continue to do what we are doing in developing our talent. That doesn't stop, right? But more importantly, I spoke about this in a different way. We realized that from the same footprint that we have, we are out in the villages, right? And we are increasing what we call, excellence in productivity. And therefore, we are with the same employment that we have. How do we, can we think about with the 1 million number of people employed in the apparel industry, can you still become an $8 billion business? And that's the thinking. How do we automate? How do we get, we have looked at employees producing more by providing them the required tools to do so, meaning whether it is automation, whether it is inline engineering that helps them to produce more and they earn more, right? So with this same number of 1 million people in the industry, can we do $8 billion business? And that's the thinking that we have. And we said it should be possible. Why is it possible? Because you have what you call production excellence coming into in productivity excellence coming into your operation. And these are consultants that are coming in from various parts of the world, helping us from other industries, and especially the car industry, right? How they have brought in excellence in manufacturing. And that is how we want to tackle this problem, not keep employing and opening new factories and nothing, but make sure that people don't go to the Middle East to work, but be able to earn that type of money being in Sri Lanka, and being happy to go back in the evening to their families, right? The social, economic, the social aspect of that is enormous. They go to work in the morning and they have a happy home and earn what they would have earned or in the Middle East. If we can do that, that's super. And that's how we should be looking at how we can continue to harness this employment talent that we have. Thanks, Lakshman.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharad. I know that
I just want one thing, and because we have all exporters here, I'd like to say this. with regard to labor, at JAF, we are talking about this, and I want to be able to reach out to the other chambers as well. These labor regulations, and we cannot have ad hoc changes to labor regulations. Recently, they have increased the age limit, then something else will increase, the pay hike. We need to have a holistic approach of how the employment, the labor regulations are looked at. And this is something that we will get everyone around and see how, for the best of for the benefit of Sri Lanka, how we look at changing the labor regulations in a holistic manner, not ad hoc part-time, regulations as and when people feel that this is right time to do certain things. So this is something that we will take away as something work in progress, that will need all the chambers to sort of come together and we talk, we have a proper dialogue, because it's not a popularistic thing to do, and therefore people are not addressing it and not wanting to address it. But we have a government that we can talk to and get this thing done. So that's where I'll leave it to you. Thanks, Lakshman, once again.
Thank you, Sharad. Thank you,
Professor. May I add a couple of words before Sharad leaves, because I deliberately left apparel out in my presentation because I wanted to hear it all from Sharad, and he did an outstanding job to do that. But I do want to highlight that apparel is 4 times larger than the next export industry from Sri Lanka, which is tea. And it has continued to be that way for a long time, and I'm sure it will be in the future. And the most significant thing about the apparel industry, when we look at other industries, is the fact that the industry is together with one voice. The Joint Apparel Associations Forum is the key, one of the key success factors of the apparel industry. And I appeal to the other industries also to come together like that, so that we can create a loud voice for every sector in this country for exports. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. As the chairman of the EDB, I think those are very, very encouraging words that has been given to the garment industry and also to Sharad. Sharad, I know that you now have to go and maybe have a word, or maybe to entice the foreign your customers to get orders. So I don't want to, because Sri Lanka needs the dollars, so I know that you have to go, but I think the initial talk was very, very encouraging. In fact, I was thinking that we are in a different world, because when you see the TV and other places, you know what you listen to, but today we listen something entirely different, what is happening. And this is what they must encourage and then tell the people, you see what can be done. Then they will know what Sri Lanka is, and definitely they will, the love for the country, because tomorrow, as I said, is independence. So what you told today is something, a very good lesson for us on the 74th anniversary of our celebration. So thank you once again. And I'm sure that we will be able to get you, but I'm also happy that 91 we did the changes, and I'm sure that that has made you all really great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Best, right? Okay.
Okay.
So thanks. Bye. Thanks, Sharad. So let me go on to the next speaker, that is on the manufacturing industry and also on the rubber-based industry. As I told you, Dr. Kulatunga Rajapaksa, the Emeritus Managing Director of the DSI Group. So may I invite Dr. Kulatunga to give his comments and remarks.
Good evening, Dr. Professor Lakshman and other panelists who are here today. Mr. Suresh Dumel, Chairman EDB, has covered the statistics part of it, and Mr. Sharad Damalian has covered the human resource part of it. So that makes my presentation very easy, because the facts that he has mentioned is applicable to not only to apparel industry, it applies to almost all the industries, and especially the labor matters that he has mentioned. So I will not repeat the same thing again, but I will focus on the rubber industry first. rubber industry is the number 2 export earner as regards to apparel. Apparel is number 1 and number 2 is rubber, where they have performed very well this year, surpassing $1 billion mark, 2021, and as against 786 million in 2020. That's a remarkable increase in spite of a lot of hardships that they've been faced. But the biggest contribution has come from solid tires and pneumatic tires. And the rubber industry, unlike other industries, unlike other agri industries, there's a lot of imported inputs as well. But the rubber industry is a very heavy industry, employing very heavy machinery and consuming very high energy, and also employing a highly technical staff, especially the graduates and especially the engineers, because that industry is such that they need a qualified engineers to run this industry. And also we need rubber technologists, because this industry is working very closely with the universities, because a lot of R&D has to be, the input of R&D is required to keep in pace with the other industries. So therefore, this industry is employing a lot of qualified technologists, unlike other industries. And also, it has to be continuous, to have continuous improvements in this. So the biggest revenue that we get from is input is using the local natural rubber. But unfortunately, this has to be linked with the plantation industry as well. But the natural rubber production, unfortunately, has come down from 125,000 metric tons before to almost 75,000 metric tons. Earlier, natural rubber was exporting without any value addition. Now, there is hardly any rubber being exported as raw rubber, but all are given substantial value addition. And we have reached the situation that we are forced to import natural rubber and also latex. So I think this is an area that we have to think very seriously, because this was tackled a few years ago by government taking the initiative to do the replanting of rubber. For that, we set up nurseries and started replanting rubber. And Monoragala is one of the areas that have been selected to do replanting. And we have been successfully replanted 5,000 hectares of rubber with the assistance of IFAD. And that those project is now giving a lot of results. And we are just managing all those replanting are now giving rubber, and that has a little bit of breathing space with the natural rubber production, but that's still not enough. Then again, another area that has been developed very fast is the rubber gloves. The COVID crisis has given a lot of opportunities for gloves manufacturers, and all the gloves factories are full of orders, and there's a boom for that, and the prices are booming, and now capacity is not enough. Here again, we are importing latex, unfortunately, and if that is not the case, we would have saved a lot of foreign exchange by having raw rubber as well as latex from the domestic market, local market. Unfortunately, that is another crisis situation, and that is a long-term arrangement, so we can't just have overnight. So government should have a long-term policies in replanting rubber, so that with the raw material, the basic raw material that is required to develop the rubber industry is the basic raw material. So that is not happening. So I think it's now time, with the crisis situation, that government will look into that area, because importing rubber and importing raw materials will not serve the purposes now, because all the buyers are asking very short delivery time periods now. So we have to deliver within short periods. So therefore, we must have the raw materials, at least the basic raw materials, in situ to do it. Then other point that we have to mention here is the imported inputs. As in the same way as garments, rubber industry, even though we show import a lot of the export figures, there are major component of the rubber products, the raw materials are being imported. So therefore, the imported raw materials that we are getting now, we do have problems like other industries about the delays in getting the shipments, and shortage of vessels, and the increase of freight rates and etc. Those are things that we have to face. But still, with all that, we have managed to overcome all those things with the R&D that we are doing and the lean production and increasing having the productivity improvements. Then other thing that we are facing now is even the governments also face the same situation, since I am talking about the industry as well. Those companies who do not have exports more than 40%, more than 50% rather, are facing a serious situation on the dollar crisis. Because those who have 100% exports can manage the LCs because they do have the dollar, they have the dollars, and against the dollars they can open LCs. But in the case of other companies who do not have exports more than 50%, they are finding it difficult to manage because they have to find dollars. So this has created a problem even to the exports, because most of the companies who are having 50% exports are diluting their costs with the domestic market. So that is also an issue that is facing especially the industries. Apart from rubber, even the other industries, even the footwear industry, almost 75% of the raw materials in the footwear industry are being imported. Right now, many footwear industries are being in a serious situation because of the this dollar crisis, because footwear exports are not to that tune right now, because only 30 to 40% are being exported, balance for 70% is up to the local market. So for that, we need local raw material. Then other thing that we have is the because of the freight increase. Now, I don't know whether Mr. Sherardin mentioned, the increase in our freights is so much, almost 150% increase in freight rates has taken place. So this has to be absorbed by the exporters, because most of the buyers, they do not give price increases because of all that. So we have to, we are affected by both ways. One is imported raw materials. Also, we have to have the high freight rates, and even exports, we have to pay the high freight rates. So exports, when we exports, of course, buyers will not pay, because once we contract of CIF contracts, we can't do it. If there are FOB contract, that's okay. But if there are CIF contracts, we can't do anything. The freight rate increase is enormous, but still for all, we are managing, because we have to cut the cost down. Then the rubber industry is another industry that contains very high power. The power consumption in rubber industry is extremely high. And apart from power, we consume a lot of fuel also. For all the rubber industries are operating on boilers. And very few industries are doing on firewood. Most of the companies are on furnace oil or fossil fuel. So the fossil fuel, any fossil fuel shortages will definitely affect this industry. That has to be looked into. And power crisis, now there's a talk coming on power interruptions. Rubber industry is in an industry that cannot afford to meet these power interruptions, because the moment there's a power interruption for a few seconds, the losses are huge losses, because a machine restarting is going to be huge losses, because all the material inside the machines has to be thrown out if there's a power drop or power interruption. So this is one area that we have to be looked into. Then other thing is, other speakers did mention about the clearing of the shipments, especially those who are having, as I mentioned earlier, about the 50% exports and 50% domestic market. The shipments that are being cleared has to be done within 3 or 4 days to prevent the demurrages. But the banks are finding it difficult to meet the bills due to lack of dollars. So therefore, the demurrage bill is also coming into the cost of it. So that is another area that we have to look into it, because especially when we need dollars, that area has to be looked into. Then another area that we have to think of it is the foreign remittances for migrant workers are being given an enhanced rate of foreign exchange, whereas exporters are still at the normal level of $203 rate. So I think if it can be considered as a realistic interest rate or allow the dollar to float, I think the exporters will be benefited, because right now we are in a very, very tight position. But we must think how the other countries are managing. In the case of India, there is a proposal that they will consider freight rebates for certain products in certain sectors, some sort of freight rebate to give a concession. And also, right now, even the fuel that they're consuming in India, there's a duty there. They will are planning to give duty drawbacks for the exporter. So that is all, even though the amount is very small, that also may be a little bit of breathing space for exporters who are working on very thin margins. Then about the COVID situation, with the COVID crisis, especially the rubber sector, we are unable to work from home because our operations are such that we have to be always in the factory because we are in line productions. So the lines has to be, all must be there, full line must be there to work. So without, with the COVID, we are in an extremely difficult situation, but still for all, we are managing. Then about the GSP situation, Mr. Sharad Amalian mentioned very clearly that we have to make the maximum use of the GSP, and that's a consolation that we do have. We have to stress on that, and that is for the European market only. Right now, the situation is even the European market, they are reducing their inventories, and therefore the buyers, the orders that they are placing have been come down. But that might regain very later, but still for all the right now the situation is they are pressing for lower prices. So, and the quantities are coming down, and especially rubber industry such that we have to work on quantities. So when the quantities come down, there again, the cost is going up. So therefore, we are now forced to look into the other markets, diverse markets. So the market that we are going to think of is now, we have to seriously think of the Asian market now to be in the supply chain. That is an area that rubber industry is now looking into it. Then Mr. Gerard Amalian mentioned about the bilateral agreement, so I will not touch on that, but that's an area with the bilateral agreements and the FTAs that we have to strengthen so that we may be able to benefit from those countries by making those facilities. Then another area that we have to think of is, as we are talking about the debt problem, we are always focusing only on the foreign exchange earnings, that is dollar earnings. But since we have to come out of the debt problem, we must see that we must save some dollars also. Dollar saving is not considered here much. But all the industries who are manufacturing with import substitution are saving dollars. So those industries also must be encouraged to save more dollars, because then that will save the foreign exchange, and that will give some sort of consolation for the dollar crisis that is situation now. Because right now we are talking about the increasing exports, and we have said the other day the exports have been increased this year, but as compared to 2021. At the same time, we must understand that there's an increase in imports as well, because imported imports is required for those increasing exports. So therefore, that also to be considered, and ultimately we have to evaluate whether there's a net foreign exchange earning on that. So that is a matter that we have to need to consider. So with those words, I think I have covered the areas, but rubber industry especially, and together with other industries, we are operating with very extreme difficult conditions with the COVID crisis. And also, as Mr. Sharad Amalian mentioned, I will not repeat the human resources issues that is coming up with the ad hoc decisions that have been taken, so that will have to be looked into. Thank you very much. And we hope that the realistic exchange rate will be materialized very soon, because that is the only consolation that all the other exporters are facing now, because the cost reduction and productivity improvements have been areas that are on the cards, but this is an area that has been seriously looked into. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajapaksa. I think you explained everything in detail. So we will quickly go on to the other speakers. Please keep it brief, because otherwise we will not have time for the panel discussion. Sure, Mr. Dinesh Irakudi is already having a lot of questions to ask. So may I invite Mr. Jehan Peringpanayagam, the Vice Chairman of SLASCOM and also the CEO of Informate Private Limited, a John Keel's group company, to speak on the BPM, BPO sector. Over to you, Jehan.
Thank you very much. Again, organizing a very relevant forum with the national interest at heart. I hope I'm heard, Professor.
Yeah, fine. You are fine. Yeah.
CMA is not only a leading accounting body, but passionate in championing the betterment of our country. Also encouraging to hear some of the statistics from Mr. Dimel on the growth in several export sectors. And I too am very excited. So I'm pleased to be representing SLASCOM, which is the Industry Association for IT and BPM companies, which encompasses 360 member companies and nearly 100,000 workforce. This is also one of the few industries that has continued to grow, even during the pandemic. The IT BPM industry is already the 4th largest export revenue earner and a key contributor to our economy in a very short span of time. So unlike some of the traditional industries, this industry probably emerged 15, maximum 20 years ago. And within this short space of time, it has had a significant impact on the national economy. And Sri Lankan companies had a very good track record throughout the pandemic. In fact, sometimes some customers of ours internationally have commented that post-pandemic SLAs are even better than pre-pandemic. Now, several countries, including India, unfortunately struggled a lot with the COVID pandemic, with several of their staff falling sick, and work had to sometimes be taken back to the US and UK. But in the case of Sri Lanka, we had an excellent delivery. Today, our industry accounts for USD 1.7 billion. As at 2021 is our estimate, and employs close to 120,000 workforce. It's an important contributor, and we are experiencing double-digit growth even during the pandemic. And the projection is by 2025 to have a workforce of 200,000 and earning USD 5 billion in export earnings. The industry is an inclusive one. 35% are female overall. And if you look at BPO specifically, nearly 49% are female, including in our leadership. We're very proud that SLASCOM, for the first time, we have a female chair, Sandra De Souza. HDPL, one of the biggest BPOs, is headed by Niluka, a woman. And in several other companies, Haley's BPO is headed by Rukshani. So, and we also employ people with disabilities. So it is a responsible industry. Now, the growth that we've seen has come organically. We've seen my compatriots in WNS getting some very big accounts from UK and US and hiring several hundred people. I heard HDPL has got an order for nearly 1,000 people. So organic growth, even in my company, Informate, we've just got over the last couple of days 2 big orders from Australia. It has also come through FDIs. We had HCL coming in fairly recently, and within 1 year scaling up to 1,000 people. We had investments from Wiley's. 99X was bought over by a big company. Virtusa was bought over. We had Ryzen buying Attune, formerly owned by MAS. We had a big Philippines-based BPO, Emapta, coming and setting up with BUI here. And several others, big players, including Tata, TCS, Concentrix, and even Ernst & Young, the global delivery center, they're looking at Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is beginning to be known as a center of excellence and as a key player in the IT BPO industry. A notable feature that we saw during the pandemic is that because people were anyway working remotely, companies have started to feel a lot more comfortable with the concept and with the idea of offshoring. Anyway, it's being done by someone in a remote location whom they can't see. So why not get it done at much cheaper rates, with much better talent in Sri Lanka? So people are becoming more comfortable with the idea. In fact, a whole new type of tourism has emerged called digital nomads. In fact, Sri Lanka was highly rated, and we won an award as one of the best and most conducive countries for digital nomads, where people who are working on IT industry can travel to Sri Lanka, stay for 1 year in Sri Lanka, and continue doing their work for the US. So there is a special category of visa called digital nomads that has recently been launched. So the people are also looking to diversify risk, because they realize if they have their delivery center only in India, and if they are impacted, that can impact the company. So we've had several inquiries coming from India and Philippines companies, whom we would normally see as competition, looking to have their second centers in Sri Lanka. In fact, we have developed a strategy called India +1 and Philippines +1. Have your primary center there, but have your second center to spread your risk in Sri Lanka. So the immediate priorities that we have as an industry, and it's a very, very promising one. Immediate priorities, as some of you touched, are the messaging, because some of our clients are beginning to get concerned about some of the messages that they see, that we have fuel for only 2 weeks, and they're asking questions. So it's very important that we have positive messaging, also that we can showcase that we have a plan, to address this. So that would be something that would really settle the jitters, if you like, and make sure that there is stability and that they continue to look at Sri Lanka for growth. These challenges are not unique to Sri Lanka. Today, actually, several other countries have similar challenges. Even in developed countries, you have empty shelves, they have concerns with supply chain, they have concerns with power, with gas, but it's the messaging. The dollar crisis also is something that we would appreciate if it was resolved. Of course, as an export-oriented industry, having a dollar which is free float would definitely benefit the exporters. Of course, we understand the national economic priorities as well, but we also need dollars to purchase some of the licenses that are required in order for us to carry out our tasks. And that is in scarce supply, and that is a challenge. Medium term, I think, as all of you shared, capacity, the numbers, the workforce, because our industry works completely with people. So making sure that we have the numbers who are ready and the right talent ready is vital. So some strategies that as an industry that we have thought of, it's important to go out of Colombo. Colombo alone can't supply. We have already very good case studies. If you look at Orel IT, if you look at GSS, they have big centers in Galle, in Kurunegala. My own company, we pioneered the concept of rural BPO. We have 3 centers, Mahavilacha, Sinigama, Jaffna. 50% of the John Keel shared services work. Cinnamon, Grand, Lakeside, the Keel supermarkets are done in those centers. So they can deliver, they can reach world-class standards if they are given the chance and they are given the opportunity. So we would encourage more corporates to look at centers across Sri Lanka. We have the Galle IT BPO park opening later in this month, and there are 4 more BPO parks earmarked in different parts of the country, which is a great initiative by the government. This industry has also been encouraged, and we are very grateful to the government. It's tax-free. They have done a lot to encourage this industry. We have close working relationships with EDB, with BOI, with ICTA, the Ministry of Finance. They've all been extremely supportive. And SLASCOM has a variety of programs, including Tech Kids, Bridge programs, and boot camp to help people from other disciplines who are underemployed or unemployed to come into the IT BPO industry. We also would like to see country branding. We have a wonderful brand that was developed called IOI, Island of Ingenuity. We need to take this message of this brand to the world. We are still not known enough. There are articles in journals, in tech journals about Eastern Europe and about India and Philippines, not much about Sri Lanka still. We need to have a good country report, which we are in discussion with, maybe by A.T. Kearney or by Gartner, which will position Sri Lanka properly. And also we have an initiative, a green IT initiative, just as Sharad spoke about sustainability in the apparel industry, which has been a huge success. You know, the tagline, garments without guilt. We want to do something similar for the IT BPO industry, and we want to position Sri Lanka as the first green IT BPO destination in the world. So we have launched an ESG initiative across our membership and a variety of programs so that Sri Lanka will be known as a responsible provider. So those are some of the plans, challenges, and strategies for growth, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jehan. I think there will be questions that will come up. I'm sure Dinesh will look at it. One of the areas is, of course, the education one. I'm sure Dinesh will be able to get those. Let me get the next speaker. That's on the tea exports, the tea sector. Can I invite the Vice Chairman of the Tea Exporters Association, Mr. Ganesh Iswaran Devanayagam, who is also chairman of Eastern Brothers Export Private Limited. May I hand you over to Ganesh, please?
Thank you, Professor. Indeed, a pleasure to be a part of anything that you do, and providing an opportunity for the Tea Exporters Association to be part of this all-important need of the hour discussion. This is especially, I would say, is very important. No, I think there's some disturbance.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
so this is especially important. We do see in a lot of forums and instances, more sexy industries like IT or electronics and so on are given prominence, and the backbone old industries which have delivered for decades are sometimes not really given the focus and attention. And the tea sector, of course, has been the backbone of Sri Lankan economy for many decades. I think since independence, the free education system, the healthcare system, all of it was developed from the earnings of the tea industry, they say. However, due to, I would say, many factors, global as well as local, our industries remained at about $1.5 billion. I think last year we only did about 1.4. But it has held itself together to especially support the all-important foreign exchange earning for Sri Lanka. My secretariat, that is the Tea Exporters Association Secretariat, has put together a few slides. I will just very quickly rush through them, and I'll stick to the time constraint that Professor has put for me. I suppose you can see these slides.
Yeah, we can.
So basically, we are all very proud of the achievement of $1.5 billion, and of which tea is a very strong and important player. Sri Lankan tea industry produced about 20 million kilos more than the previous years. However, due to the fertilizer issue that we faced, even though we had very good weather conditions in 2021, we could not achieve even much higher production. If we had that, probably we would have done the 1.5 billion target that the government set for us, for 2021. And you will see that the production increased by 7% last year, and that's purely attributable to the support of the government. And this was one of the industries that kept on working. There was no closure at all. The estates were open, people were going, the estate workers were plucking teas even throughout the pandemic, and our export industries were continuing to operate thanks to the support given by the government and the officials. I'll just go straight to the export figures, just so that certain important points can be gleaned from this. So there was a 20 million kilograms of increase. There was a 60 rupees, or rather 54 rupees increase in the FOB price per kg from tea exports. However, if you take the overall position, there was a 4 cents reduction in the US dollar FOB price. But if you really see the story that comes out of here is that the tea bags and green tea and instant tea, they all registered an increase in the per kilo realization. The bulk and the tea packets, which are also essentially big packets, registered a small reduction. And the reduction in FOB prices, the US dollar FOB prices are probably or mostly, I would say, attributable to the freight challenges and the logistic challenges that the tea industry suffered. I'll get to the key markets, which I'm sure will be of interest to many. So Middle East and North Africa, the region, the MENA region, accounts for about 54% of our exports. CIS and Russia about 15%, and UK, Europe 10%, and Asia 9%, and China becoming a rising star of this. However, the reliance on some of these markets, which are very old and traditional markets, and the problems that these markets face in terms of the geopolitical issues in the Middle East or the current situation in Ukraine and Russia, is also a challenge for Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan tea. Moving very quickly to look at the outlook for Sri Lankan tea, the freight issue that's been repeatedly, I mean, even the rubber industry gentleman pointed out, we have this freight issue. I would like to give an example of, some of the issues that we are facing. One destination, which takes about, say, 300, 400 containers of one particular company, the freight increase was from $3,000 averaging last year, because they had a contract, is now $7,000, which means an increase of more than 100% in the freight. And the tea being a commodity product, even though we do have brands and value addition, Sri Lanka is very good at value addition compared to many other tea producing countries, yet a 20% price increase is required on the finished goods just to cover the freight increase for tea. So this sort of a challenge is to be really addressed. It's an international challenge. It's everybody in the globe is facing this, but this is going to be the biggest worry for next year. The high cost of fertilizer, which will reduce the production in some of the regions, that can be a problem. And overall, there is an out-of-home consumption of tea that is growing now, which was completely depleted during the pandemic. Now that will come back, and we have already started seeing that coming back. That will increase the demand, and once again, that will also push the prices for tea higher, which is ultimately a good thing for Sri Lanka, as more than 1 million people in this industry also depend on tea exports. The fertilizer issue, of course, it's a very well-known problem, well-intended, yet not very well managed. This problem, which the country had to unfortunately face, the impact of reduced fertilizer usage in the tea plantation sector, especially in the smallholder sector, which accounts for about just over 70% of the tea leaf production, is going to get affected. That is a reality. So the first quarter and the second quarter of 22, we believe there will be some impact because of the fertilizer, even if the climatic conditions remain stable. But currently it's been made available, so I think we will, kind of bounce back probably in the second half of the year. So I think because of this particular issue, we might get a hit this year by about 5% in production. Very quickly, a lot of positive things are there when it comes to tea exports. There's a strong crude oil prices, and growth in the Middle East and Russian countries will allow us to, it will definitely increase the tea consumption. And pandemic has definitely put the kappa, the old kappa, back on the map because of the health and wellness concerns of the consumers, as well as spending more time at home has increased, and a move towards better quality of tea being consumed. Some of the negative factors, I will not go too much into it. The strong rupee, which is a great thing if we can call it, have it as a strong rupee. However, the artificially strong or the unmatched forex management, which our country has been forced to undertake. I mean, it's not something that I'm sure the government wants to do, but we've been forced to keep it at this level, is definitely hurting the exporters, mainly because we are not in par with the rest of the countries who are managing their currencies at a different level. So I think going forward, this will ease out, and there will be a managed float for our currency. But until then, there is an issue. So, for example, the freight problem that we are facing, the tea industry is facing for exports, may get offset to a fair extent if the foreign currency rate is properly managed. So these challenges are there, but we are very conscious as an industry that we form a very important part of the social fabric of this country. As I said, 1 million people depend on this, and some of the most challenged part of the country is habitated by these people, and they do a very, very difficult and hard job in the difficult terrains. We have to look after them, and this is something that the industry is always conscious about. There are other challenges, because Kenya is a country that had come up very, very fast in the last few years. Again, supported by some of our great planters who had gone there and helped that country to establish plantations. They now produce and export close to 500 million kilos, much more than what we have exported. And they are also slowly creeping into the orthodox tea, which is something that Sri Lanka has been leading. We control over 55% of the orthodox tea market in the world. So these are some of the key challenges that we are looking at. I mean, just as a closing remark, I just would like to say that tea industry is important. We have, as an industry, specialized in tea. It's not just the tea. There's a lot of innovation that's taking place. There's a lot of new products in the beverage category and wellness category that's being developed in Sri Lanka. So we have to look at the old adage from the textbooks of, say, economics or marketing, of getting back to our knitting, looking at our competitive advantage, and focus on the specialization that the tea industry, which has been there for more than 150 years, has provided, for the economy in this country. So tea industry is good at knowing the consumer trends around the world, managing flavors, gratification, packaging, logistics, and above all, we provide a very friendly and reliable service. So these things, I'm sure, will help our country to excel with not just tea, but beyond tea, of food and beverages that'll be using the tea as an ingredient. So, Professor, thank you again for giving me giving TEA the opportunity to make this quick and fast presentation. And I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ganesh. If you can kindly maybe take the report. Anyway, thank you very much, Ganesh, for that address. Now, we will go on to the next one, because I think we are having a problem on the time. So we have Mr. Jagat Patirana, who is the Director CEO of Expo Lanka Freight Limited, and also the Chief Administrative Officer of Expo Lanka Holdings PLC, to speak to us on the transport and logistics sector. Over to you, Jagat.
Good evening to everyone. Just trying to get my notes on. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for the invitation to this very important and timely forum on a very, very crucial topic. I'm glad that I normally find it difficult to speak last, but I'm glad that I did so. I collected a lot of sales leads, except from Jahan, by listening to all of panelists before me. So thank you very much for that kindness. So if I am to, articulate the present scenario, or it should be, we should speak about what happened in 2021. We had a very, very difficult situation. Everyone knows about the COVID pandemic, the havoc it created, the disruption that was caused to the supply chains. And then, of course, the advent of high costs in moving cargo in and out of every country. So what also we saw was, lack of capacity out of Sri Lanka, and especially due to the ships avoiding Colombo port during the pandemic. So what proactive action that we took as a company, as an industry, is what I would like to speak about. We can proudly say that we never closed operations. We continue to do our operations continuously without having any break. Then that actually was complemented by the BCP that was in place. Way back in March 2020, we had the first COVID outbreak in China, and the first office that was affected was the Chinese office that we had. And then with that, we learned a lot, and then we started getting our act together. We knew what to do when it really spread around the world. So Sri Lanka was not spared, and we had lots of numbers going up. I mean, to be honest, when we first had the COVID patient, we were wondering, how to announce it to the public, because Sri Lanka being a very sensitive country, whether people would want to still continue business with us and so forth. So, but we overcame all of that, and we managed to somehow service the clients that we have had. And if you would not find fault with me if I say most of the finished apparel exports and raw material imports flows through Expo Lanka. We are the pioneer in that segment, which means, any closure for even one day would have had a massive ramification on the entire industry. So as a result, we were fortunate that the actions we took enabled to continue operations without any issue. Obviously, you would also have seen the logistics cost increased significantly. I think all the speakers before me were mentioning all that, before. Over the course, over the past 2 years, this has been on the increase, and we haven't seen it coming down except for a few months now, it getting stabilized. It was not only a Sri Lankan specific issue. The supply chain disruption in China and USA greatly contributed to this. Unfortunately, we do not see them getting resolved anytime sooner. So that's the bad side of the story. We are well aware that these high costs have a tremendous impact on the overall competitiveness of Sri Lankan exports, on whom we really bank on. So once we add the logistics costs from Sri Lanka to the respective destination, it's no brainer that the cost of product increases by a significant percentage. So we ourselves have our own export operations in our organization, and we have not been spared. So I mean, I could also say that what we ship to Rotterdam at $1,000 US increased to $1,000 US for just $10,000 US just for a container load of coconut water that we exported. So you could imagine, whether the customer would really want to drink coconut water when it reaches, the final destination. So in this context, I mean, as forwarders, we applaud our exporters for maintaining its customer base during this very tough time. It just shows, the potential of Sri Lankan exporters and the determination and the resilience that they have really been showing throughout, this pandemic situation. I think Professor Vatawala mentioned the reason for our industry's growth during the intro. And I think it was also, I mean, with a note of, the increased export numbers or the increased rates that we were charging. It's not really the case. Sometimes, when you look at the increased export numbers mentioned by Chairman EDB and later endorsed by Mr. Amalin, justifies and relieves us that it's not only the rate increases, but the volume increase as well that has contributed towards our growth. The third and the most pressing issue faced by us, the logistics industry, the logisticians, was the lack of capacity out of Sri Lanka. Right, with all passenger flights grinding to a halt, we had to improvise and provide quick solutions to our customers. We were one of the few companies which worked directly with large airlines such as Emirates, Etihad, and the like, to convert their passenger flights into cargo flights by removing seats and adding cargo to those planes, sending them almost all the way, or sometimes even halfway around the world. So this was a kind of a initiative that we did to ensure that the exporters did not have an impact by way of not having space on the general commercial flights that were flying out of Sri Lanka, which were no more there at that time. Then shipping lines have even created greater issues. They have avoided sailing to Colombo because we have this imposed restriction on imports. Lesser number of imports came in and lesser number of containers therefore came in. So there was a huge shortage of containers that you would have noticed in the system. Then that also gave an impact for the shipping lines not to call Sri Lanka and bypass Sri Lanka and sail to other ports in the neighborhood. So this unforeseen problem created havoc in the entire system. Then, of course, in addition, we had the congestion in China. Then we had the congestion in the US and other Western ports because of the pandemic situation. And that created a huge demand, which ultimately resulted in the increase in rates. So looking ahead, I feel that much more should be done from the government's perspective to help our export industry, because we have to adapt to the situation as the new normal. Private companies cannot take this level of burden on their own anymore. And I think the first thing they need to resolve is the USD crisis. We saw an alert from Finance Minister talking about discussions with IMF, which is a good thing. I think we need some firm position, as it has not been transparent thus far and not been kind of positive. I think that kind of signal will trigger a lot of enthusiasm and also the attention that is required in a positive manner. From an air freight perspective, I think we also have a challenge. I think this was discussed also with the Chairman EDB some time back in another forum. I also did mention this to him at one of the events that we have had, about the national carrier resorting to have the comfort of IATA to import CAS. CAS is, in brief, is cargo account settlement system, which ought to squeeze credit periods from the present 30 to 60 days to about 7 to 14 days. So the forwarding fraternity has vehemently objected to this initiative. I think if I may explain a little bit more on this, CAS is actually an automated system which the airlines are using for the passengers as well as cargo movement or freighting. So what happens is that you have to surrender your bank account to them, and then your the bill or the invoice value from the airline will get deducted from your account immediately. And that period of credit can be reduced to 7 to 14 days. I think the passenger segment is only enjoying 7 days credit period as of now. So if this is imposed for the cargo operations as well, air freight is going to be a very difficult thing, and there'll be a new requirement of working capital that will come into the system, right? So another aspect is the focused economic revival. We have seen government giving free money to large number of groups within the society. I would like to also ask this forum, what sort of monetary assistance did the government provide your companies, right? And all of us who are in this forum, right? Some level of subsidies for at least import of raw materials for the apparel industry would have made a massive difference to the industry. This is, my personal thinking. One last point I would like to say that particularly for the industry, for the logistics industry, the working capital has been a massive issue. Usually we used to extend credit to our customers for 60 days when the cost of container was only about $2,000, right? The customers are still demanding 60 days or even more with these constraints that are there at present, right? So now the container has reached $20,000. That's the price, it has gone up to. So small companies, for small companies who are operating out, is burden of managing this working capital requirement immensely, right? These critical areas that government should have been really, looking at. Thankfully, as a company, Expo Lanka, we do have a parent who is capable of, funding us, and which is one of the reasons that we have managed to somehow sustain and grow and be competitive out there in the market to do what we have done. So I'm glad that mention was made by Mr. Amalin on the hub concept during his submission. So this is something that we have been really, we pioneered in that, and ours was the first hub that was launched in the Katunayaka zone. And we did, actually the concept that Mr. Amalin articulated is something that we really started. And we have had one Finnish customer who brought the tops from, say, the blouse top from Bangladesh, and they procured the bottom from Sri Lanka, the shoes from Pakistan, and they coupled it together in Sri Lanka, and we did that operation, and then we re-exported that to Finland. So this kind of concept is ideally the thing that they should really look at, because earlier what happened was, they imported all these merchandise into Finland, and they did the consolidation there, which was more costly. And whereas, they managed to, by decentralizing it and having it in Sri Lanka, they managed to even look at other markets and in the region, and they started even exporting to India out of Sri Lanka. So this kind of new thinking has to come in. And we as forwarders, we are really wanting the hub concept to emerge. We just can't depend only on the imports and the exports that is in and out of this country. We need more volume to come in. So thank you very much. I think I would like to conclude my submission at this. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Mr. Jagat. We are very thankful to you, and also the great service you have been doing to the export sector. And I'm sure that whatever benefits and others that you are talking of would really help the export industry. So finally, let me, because we wanted the hotel sector, Mr. Sanat Uppata is there, as I introduced him as the former chairman of the Hotels and Tourism Association, and also the chairman of the Mount Rainier Hotel. Sanat, maybe you could maybe briefly mention, because our time is running out, but certainly we have opportunity for you. Okay.
I understand. Thank you so much for inviting the Hotels Association, which I represent as the immediate past president, for this important forum, especially the export forum. Although the tourism is in a crisis right now and we are on a rebuilding mode, we are important export industry in the country. Because when a foreigner visits our country, the funds ultimately transferred from overseas. So although we earn foreign currency here, it comes from abroad and we provide a service in the country. And in 2018, we earned $4.5 billion of foreign currency, US dollars. So, you know, after the remittances, garments, we were number 3 export earning industry or foreign currency earning industry in the country. And good thing about tourism is that 80% of our foreign currency earnings retains in the country. It remains in the country because we have very little input to run our industry. So it's an ideal industry for Sri Lanka in the present context and even also for the future. So I believe that tourism as a major economic force is one industry which can turn this, can be the game changer for the country, not only in terms of generating employment, but also in terms of generating valuable foreign currency. Our target is by 2027 to be a $10 billion industry in terms of earnings. In terms of assets, we are already valued at $12 billion in our industry. It's one of the highest asset-based industry in the country. And we do get a number of foreign direct investments as well. Because in 2019, the government declared us as an export industry. And we are getting same concessions as any other export, which is a great thing. And it's not done in many countries, but a lot of foreigners are interested in this concept. And they are, in fact, ready to invest in the tourism plant or industry in the country at the appropriate time. So we have got the groundwork, the foundation, and we are ready. We are getting ready now. We are rebuilding our industry together with the government, help from the government, of course, and to be a major driver of the economy, especially in context of foreign exchange earnings in time to come. Other thing I want to highlight, after being the last speaker, I have been listening to all the valuable input given by distinguished speakers. And tourism is all about destination branding and marketing. And what is destination branding and marketing? It is that we identify our strongest assets and market it in an appealing manner to the prospective visitors by building a story around it and running a narrative consistently through all our marketing communications. And apart from our natural assets, what the country has to offer, our biggest asset is our human capital. We are a service industry. We often talk about Sri Lankan hospitality. So basically, we are marketing our people. And the entire export industry here, after listening to all your distinguished speakers at the panel, it boils down to people at the end. So what I'm trying to say is that, now we have quite a large budget for promotions, although right now that's got stuck because we don't have enough dollars, but we do spend a lot of money on marketing. If we pool all our resources as one and have a Sri Lankan brand, enhance our brand of Sri Lanka, like what India has done with Incredible India, whether it's tourism, whether it's the BOI or whatever, they use one brand for the entire nation. Likewise, I think we also can do with branding. The export industry is all depends on branding. When you see our made in Sri Lanka label on a garment, when we go abroad, when we pick up a garment, we feel so proud about it. So it's all about branding the nation, branding the country. So likewise, we can all get together, pool all our promotional funds. Each industry has a promotional budget, I'm sure, and we can do a fantastic job with that. And my last point I'm trying to say, apart from the the restructuring of our debt, which we are hoping the government will address very soon. Other things what we need from the government side is the labor laws, which need to be reformed. Especially our business is a seasonal business, and the current laws don't have that flexibility to employ part-time workers in a proper manner. So we expect the government, or we are lobbying with the government to be a little bit more flexible with the labor laws, but especially for the tourism sector. Other one we would like the government to address is that the hotel need to be able to offer more avenues of income generation. How do you do that? One area, especially for Colombo, we have the largest concentration of hotel rooms in the country, and the investment as well. How to fill these hotel rooms? There are more coming up. I think ultimately we need to focus on entertainment. Entertainment-based tourism is the way forward for cities today. For Sri Lanka, I think gaming is an avenue where there's major scope of revenue generation. Government needs to introduce more robust gaming regulations and auction of new gaming licenses to existing hotels or even to new investors. Countries like Singapore have successfully carried out casino license auctions and developed an excellent gaming framework that ensures clean and transparent gambling while generating billions of dollars of revenue to Singapore. And the other thing we want government to address is to liberalize our visa regime. Today, Sri Lanka, anyone who's entering Sri Lanka has to get a visa on arrival or through an electronic travel authorization scheme. But we should revert back to the old system where visa on arrival and visa-free entry for most nationals should be introduced as soon as possible. Over 100 countries can enter Singapore without any visa, totally visa-free. Even UK, I think about 90 countries can enter UK with visa-free. In these countries, tourism is either number 1 or 2 because revenue generator and also the employment generation. In Sri Lanka, 3 million people are depending on tourism, directly and indirectly. So likewise, even for the investors, we only give one year visa. I know now the visa scheme has been revised. They are issuing 5-year visa or 5-year and 10-year permanent residency visas. But still the regulation guidelines doesn't give very much clarity. So we need to do that. And even I think Jehan, who spoke of digital nomads, here again, the visa is an issue. So I think we need to look at liberalizing the visas and allow more people to enter Sri Lanka, because at the end, what we would like to have is their earnings. So they bring a lot of money into the country, and we should allow them, facilitate them to come easily into the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanat Tukkata. I think those are very, very valuable comments. And we do hope that the industry will pick up and, as you said, bring in that most important foreign exchange, and that would be the fastest way for us to get over the debt problem. So I'm sure that is all there. So now actually, Mr. Dinesh Virakpudi, Dinesh, you are there?
Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how you're going to handle it. I will leave it open to you. Either you want to ask questions or you can think the best way, whether you want to take up the key areas and then look at it. Over to you, Dinesh.
Okay, thank you. How long do I have? 15 minutes?
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes will do.
Okay. I like to, good evening to everyone. I like to start off with a question from a participant. The question goes this way. It says, since the 200 garment factory program, Sri Lanka has run out of big ideas. What should our next big idea be? If not, we will never double our exports. So perhaps Suresh can go first.
Entrepreneurship. I have nothing else to say because Sri Lanka lacks entrepreneurship. And I believe that we have to change our culture from trading mentality to an industrial and entrepreneurial mentality. And that's what it will take for investment into value addition and all the opportunities that we have in exports or tourism or for earning foreign exchange. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. Jehan?
Sorry, I missed that. Dinesh, would you mind repeating it?
Yeah. The question says, since the 200 garment factory program, Sri Lanka has run out of big ideas. Full stop. What should be our next big idea? If not, he says we will never double our exports.
The hub concept that has come up, I think, which we've heard in recent years, I think could be the next one. Hub for tourism, hub for shipping, for education, and for IT BPM. So that could be something that that really captures imagination of the people and really spurs us on.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Kulatunga?
My feeling is, large companies to be linked with the small and medium companies in the supply chain is the area that we have to think of, because supply chain SME sector is the contributor of the economy. So I don't think Sri Lanka has made the maximum use of the SME sector in linking with the supply chain and with the large companies. So that's an area that we have to focus. Even in Korea and Japan, SME contributes a larger volume of exports for the exports, which we have not harnessed. I think that is the area I feel we should focus.
Thank you. Jagat?
Yeah, I think logistics is the way forward for us, and the hub concept that we have launched is actually a good stepping stone. And especially with this strategic location, which is conducive to the country at its best, should be used to the maximum. So we have a huge customer base in and around Sri Lanka, especially, Indian subcontinent is a huge market. So to supply to that destination is the best that we could do, and I don't think whether even Indians could deliver as fast as that we could from Colombo to any of those locations. So this is something that we really have to look at.
Okay. He says we need to get away from this Ohoma Young strategy.
Dinesh, can I just give a comment on that, what you asked? You were talking on the 200 because I was there and when we started this 200. What I would suggest is the government should go for 200 IT educational institutions throughout the country. Because and that will be done by the private sector, not the government sector. Government sector can never do this, and get them to do the education, and then Jehan will give the jobs to all these people. All the foreign investors will come. This will really revolutionize the whole country and give the villagers the courage to do this industry. So I think that would really change the whole concept.
So Jehan, given the skill shortage we have, I know there was an American company who was here a few days ago looking for 1,000 young programmers, and they went back with only about 3 or 4. So given the skill challenges we have, is it practical what Professor is suggesting?
It is practical. We have some small case studies already done, which have been done very successfully, including the ones that I shared. What we need to do is to scale it and scale it quickly. So I've heard Dhamika Pereira speaking about it. SLASCOM has its own programs. We were discussing with the Minister of Digital Technologies, Mr. Namal Rajapaksa, on this. So we want to take a few pilots and see whether we can do some quick programs. HCL has done it successfully. They were able to link up with the universities, get people on a quick boot camp of 3 to 6 months and have them employment. That's how they reached 1,000. So it can be done. It needs a very focused program. It needs all of us, education, government, private sector working together.
Okay. Sanat, I know you have done a lot of work around talent. Perhaps can you offer some suggestions or ideas on how we build our talent pool in the shortest possible time?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, talent, of course, even for tourism is a huge problem. Our ladies, unfortunately, seems to be going to Middle East, prefer to go to Middle East rather than working in the hotel sector, doing similar kind of job, at sometimes even at the higher salaries. So this is a huge problem. We need to look at it very carefully. The reasons why they are leaving, because we don't have enough data. Data gathering is something which I find seriously lacking in Sri Lanka, and that we need to be enhanced. Other thing shortly I want to mention is that we don't have, even for an entrepreneur, as a startup, we don't have development banks in this country, a proper development bank. For them to find equity is a huge problem, access to equity. I think this is something that we should look at developing. Thank you.
Right. Ganesh, any thoughts from you?
Yes, Dinesh. So I would actually agree with what Chairman EDB said about entrepreneurial talent as one word. However, I think, the Sri Lankan entrepreneurial talent is definitely very much there, but there are also a lot of challenges where, some of this talent is shackled, some of the interferences, inconsistencies of policies. If you take, for example, the tea sector, there is a lot of it's one of the most regulated industries in the country. And that causes the talent that has been developed in terms of managing tea estates, or even understanding taste profiles of various products, and to be able to even bring in other teas or other products from globally, make use of the Sri Lankan talent, our ability to market, our ability to package. We have some of the best printing factories in the country. Our logistics are, one of the best in the country. Making use of all this and using the talent or the competitive edge we have developed because of tea, we have to be able to expand the market much more than just the usual tea. So this is where, again, the hub concept of opening up to be able to make use of the local talent that's been developed over the years to tap into the entire market opportunity. Beverages is a $40 billion market. And whereas, we are just scratching at the edges. So these are if the talent or the entrepreneurial spirits are totally unshackled, not that totally uncontrolled, but, facilitate them, help them to really reach out with the potential that we have.
Great point. Suresh, can I turn to you, Suresh? You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, Dinesh.
Thank you. Listening to the panel, I think the pain points for the exporters are A, heavy freight costs, B, power outage, C, local supply shortage, 4, USD restrictions, and 5, finally, skills. How is EDB addressing some of these challenges? I know it's a difficult time.
Yeah, now I'll start from the last question. Especially in the IT industry, we are working closely with SLASCOM and ICTA on the skills development side, identifying what's necessary and lobbying to get some support for that. And then on every issue, we come up with this skills development. So it's not only IT, but I guess across the board. So yes, skills development is a high priority. What was the other question?
The other 4 issues are heavy freight costs, power outage, local supply shortage, and the big thorny one, the USD restrictions.
Yeah, I think I'll talk about the supply. That's something that we are working on. It's the SME supply chains, which are pretty significant in this country because agriculture exports and so on are heavily dependent on small producer supply chains. So a lot of work needs to be done, and our solution or our proposal is to have export houses or exporters connected to these producers through, now we have the export processing villages program, where we hope that there is going to be, it'll attract exporters to be more connected with the producer. So those are the two items that I think from an EDB point of view that I am able to answer. The other issues are at this time a little beyond our purview.
Okay. Dr. Kulatunga, would you like to talk about these USD restrictions and the impact it's having in general?
As I mentioned before, the USD restriction, very few rubber product, only very few rubber product exports are doing 100% exports. All the others, manufacturers, industries are doing exports and local both. But the costing is done, most of them diluting their cost by dumping the weights to the local sales. So that's how they have been competitive, and almost all the industries who are doing 50% or less than 50% exports. But right now situation is the factories are working under capacity. The moment they will start under capacity, their prices are not competitive. So this is why I mentioned that industries must be given priority to import their raw materials, not the trade. Now what happens is trading items are coming in, but the industry raw materials are not given priority. So this have been items that have been clamoring from the very inception, and with the result, lot of small and medium industries, which are vital factors in the supply chain, are unable to supply the material. So that is why I mentioned this. Other than the garment industry, most of the other local industry, the supply chain plays a very important role, and those are SME sectors, and especially the agriculture as well. So these are the area that has to be looked into. And exchange rate, of course, Mr. Suresh didn't comment, so that's a common problem to all exporters. So I think something has to be done. So we hope that give some green light to us.
Okay, Jagat, a quick question, comment from you.
I think, yeah, it's not an easy thing about, you know, the dollar crisis has really, you know, affected everyone. I mean, it's the same case with us, because we need to find dollars to pay the shipping lines and the airlines. So we have managed to tackle it because we have exports and imports both, and you know, we collect our funds out in the other countries, and then we can, you know, still pay for the services that we obtain because of our presence in other countries, you know, with our own officers. So, but then for the most of the others who don't have that facility, it's a problem. So
yeah. Jagat, there's a quick question for you. Somebody wants to know, with the escalating costs of shipping is a nightmare for exporters. How will this play out finally?
This is not only common to Sri Lanka. It's the same situation that is faced by everyone, you know, and even if you look at, you know, the Chinese, the benefit that the Chinese have is that, you know, they have the raw material at their own, you know, door. So whereas, you know, Sri Lankans to produce have to bring in all the raw material from another country. So then you have to pay, you know, both ways for the raw material input as well as the export operation. So but, you know, still, you know, given the current scenario, it's not only common to Sri Lanka. Everyone else out there is faced with the same situation. I think the importers have realized it. But there are certain products, once it crosses the threshold, you know, the customers don't want to have them anymore. So this is the fate that we have faced with some of those, you know, products that I mentioned during my submission. The freight rate, which was 1,000, is now 10,000. So they don't want to, you know, import anymore into those countries.
Right. This Sanath, you talked about nation branding. Maybe Ganesh and Jehan, and you can maybe make a quick comment.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Sanath.
Okay. No, basically, you know, what I meant by nation branding is that, you know, we all have a story to tell about, in our case, about tourism, and it was around the people and the hospitality. So likewise, all the export industries also pay a lot of attention on human talent. So that is one. Other thing is that countries like Rwanda, for example, has gone completely plastic free. And even Kenya has gone single-use plastic free. So as a nation, if we can also, embark on such goal of going completely plastic free. Hotel industry is doing our best to go plastic free by a single-use plastic free by 2025. That is our goal. But as a country too, if we can brand the country in that manner, we are not only doing a favor for the environment and the climate change that is constantly has become a major threat to all of us, but also we are enhancing the image of the country. And that is what country branding is all about.
Okay, Jehan.
So Sri Lanka has a lot to offer, but sometimes we are not very good at getting that message across. We have so many success stories, so many things that have done so well, so many global companies that have been so happy with Sri Lanka. So if we can really bring it all together, get that story and that brand really known internationally, and today with digital marketing and there are so many avenues that we can do it where it is still affordable, that's really going to help our industry, because unfortunately it's the bad news that often gets heard about Sri Lanka, not the many good things.
Okay, Ganesh, I know it's a challenge for you, so go ahead.
No, I think the Ceylon tea as a brand has been there. It's a legacy brand, and the newer Gen X and the Gen Z don't even know that Ceylon, the word Ceylon. However, now we have got Sri Lanka as the brand. So there is a dichotomy in managing this situation, where we sometimes want to be identified as Ceylon tea, but it's coming from Sri Lanka. So branding, as we all know, has to have one uniform messaging. So I really like the fact that what Sanat mentioned about, you mentioned Sri Lanka is something great about Sri Lanka is ringing in everybody's mind. And we should be able to, all products, including tourism, including BPO, should be able to tag on to Sri Lanka as a country, as a people. Who are we? We are reliable. We are trustworthy. We are friendly. We, stick to our words. We are nice to work with. These are things that people keep telling us. We get orders for products which we don't even manufacture. Just because we were only doing the black tea from Sri Lanka, because of the excellent service that we were giving, now they want us to pack and export all the products that they import from China and various other destinations. So we bring everything here, we pack and export to them, because they just like the way that we manage the situation, the way our staff are able to connect to with the customers and so on. So we need to, I think, probably put that in front, where our people are great, we are a great country to come to. We have a great infrastructure. I think that branding and attaching Sri Lanka to it, as opposed to trying to do just the Ceylon cinnamon or the tea or just the tourism, that might be is the way to go.
Thank you, Ganesh. Dr. Kulatunga, maybe you can respond to this. There's a comment here saying the banks need to be more hospitable towards the exporters. Would you like to comment?
Well, banks can be hospitable provided they do have dollars, right? Those who are giving dollar bank hospitable. Right now, the situation, most of the banks have been geared earlier for the trading. If you take the portfolios, most of the banks have given facilities to the traders and not to the industries. So that is the very serious issue. Therefore, their customers are traders. So that is the one reason. But most of the banks, they don't have dollars. So as far as export, I think somebody mentioned that we don't have development banks. That is one of the reasons why with the entrepreneurship not taking place. So I think the need for development bank to bring new entrepreneurship, we need a development bank, because the entrepreneurships are not taking up because of the lack of the capital. Because we don't have equity participation, venture capital, all those are not very active here. So if you take Korea, even Vietnam and Japan, you don't require capital to start any industry. Or now here, of course, to start an industry, you need capital. There's no capital arrangement of capital. So I think that is where we have to work very closely. The banks have looked into it. Banks are not doing that part of it. Of course, bank gives loans, provided you have the collateral, but that is also now not happening now. So these are the areas that we have banks should strengthen. The development bank matter, I think one member mentioned that has to be taken very seriously. I think Dr. Lakshman also thinking seriously on that line.
Prof, is anything happening there or on the development bank?
Yeah, not on the development, but of course we have initiated for the SME, where the credit guarantee institution is coming up. So that the ADB is also supporting. So that will definitely come up because I've been in touch. But on the development banks, I would like to suggest, we had 2 development banks, because the NDBB was set up for that purpose. Then the DFCC was also there. But I would suggest it because it is very, very difficult to set up a new bank. It's not an easy thing. And if government has set up many banks, but they have been all gone bankrupt. So what we should do is give support to the NDB and DFCC to have a separate division or department on the development banking, because then that will work, because at the moment trying to set up a separate one would be difficult, and the government should also give all the support. And if there are any other banks also wanting to go into this, I think they should give the support. That would be the first way to do it, and maybe a priority with some incentive that should work.
Okay, Suresh, there's a question for you here. Somebody wants to know what is the government doing to make Sri Lankan products more visible and competitive in the international market.
Yeah, now I'd like to start with the branding. Now, rightfully, Mr. Ganesh talked about Ceylon versus Sri Lanka. So this has been identified by the EDB, and now we are calling it Ceylon cinnamon born in Sri Lanka. So we want to have the name Sri Lanka. Now, an important thing here is that the EDB is guided and driven by the private sector. And it really is. And I would like to propose the industry to come together and give one message to the government, so that, I think that there are various signals coming from industry. And if we can, all come together and give sort of one message to the government, I think we can make things happen a little faster than they are happening now, and we'll go in one direction. So that's one answer I wanted to give. And the other question, Dinesh, please remind me.
I know somebody wanted to know what the government is doing to make to improve the visibility of Sri Lankan products overseas.
Yes.
And also the role of the missions.
Yes. The branding, I think, and we are working very closely now with the foreign missions abroad, and making sure that the Sri Lanka brand. Now, one of the initiatives that EDB was involved in is this island of ingenuity for the ICT sector. And really, I feel that maybe the government and the private sector need to do a little more on promoting that brand. So that's the kind of initiative that the industry wanted it. We delivered it. Now the industry and the government need to figure out how we can take it better. And I think that we have a fantastic opportunity now with all the virtual conferencing and all that to take our message out there. And I would like to mention at this point that I am an exporter of organic agricultural products. And I know that just the fact that the Sri Lankan government came out and said that they are going to be organic has created brand value for this country that is tremendous in the agriculture sector. Because I know all my buyers, so many European countries, are now focused on Sri Lanka. Suddenly they saw Sri Lanka as a country that has the possibility of being 100% organic. And I am just dreaming of the day when Sri Lanka is 100% organic and we can get 5 times the price for our agricultural produce. So that's the kind of brand that we need, that something people can believe on and help us to get, that's a real product. So I would like to say that that's the kind of thing that we must get the government also to follow up and do, so that Sri Lanka gets visibility and better recognition.
Thank you. This Ganesh, is there an opportunity for tourism, BOI and export, the EDB to collaborate to drive a nation brand?
Absolutely. I mean, tourism.
And why isn't it not happening then?
Well, I think it's probably like Mr. Suresh Dhimal said, everybody coming together as one voice. That is definitely lacking, and I think we can work on that. With that happening, I'm sure Sri Lanka as a brand across the board. Every time we go out, I mean, a simple thing like wearing the flag on your jacket every time we travel abroad. Somebody would ask you, where are you from? What is this flag? I think every one of us who is getting onto a plane and going out is an ambassador for the country. I think together we have to bring that consciousness within ourselves to promote Sri Lanka as a brand, which I think if such a clarion call is made by credible people, I'm sure everybody will come together. I think it's okay. that credibility is the issue.
Thank you. Jehan, a quick comment about boosting startups.
So Sri Lanka, one of the goals of SLASCOM, along with the export value and number of people, is also to have 1,000 startups. So we have a separate forum called the Entrepreneurship Forum that is specifically working to groom startups, to help them with business ideas, with discipline, with finance, with marketing, and also connect them with funding sources. Right. So startups are going to be very much a key component of everything that we are doing. And that 1,000 startups, possibly we are at around maybe, in fact, about 150 of our member companies are startups. And they're given free membership for 2 years so that they are encouraged. So that's a key component. And I think several of you have been talking about the SMEs, and in the IT industry, it has been the startups that have really become billion-dollar companies. One quick area that we are trying to encourage, and which Bill Gates and all of them have said, that the next billion-dollar unicorns are going to come in the area of clean tech and green tech. So sustainable IT solutions. So that's a great opportunity for Sri Lanka.
Thank you. Suresh, any comment about FTAs, driving FTAs? Because it was mentioned earlier. Anything in the pipeline?
Definitely. Yes. This last year, you would have seen in the media last week that we have gained 34% over the last year in FTA countries. So this has brought this into light, and I don't think we've discussed it like that earlier, where one of the issues with FTAs is that many of them seem like it's importer-driven than exporter-driven, or importer-influenced than exporter. So because of the growth in exports of 34% this year, let's hope that people will look at it more positively and try to exploit. One of the problems I would like to emphasize is that we are not utilizing the FTAs. The exporters are not utilizing the FTAs.
Okay. Jagat, what would be the opportunities for your industry with a few more FTAs?
I think we have been always wanting, broad basing and allowing anyone to come. We have not been profiting any restrictions to be imposed. We have been always saying that, there's a lot of room for anyone to come and play here. It's just that, we need more of the logisticians, more of the logistics companies to come into Sri Lanka and use Sri Lanka as a strategic hub. So then you will bring in the critical mass that is required. So we have actually been always, our company in particular, we have not been wanting any restrictions.
Okay. Sanath, you talked about driving the tourism industry to 10 billion. Can you tell us how you're going to get to 5 first and then to 10?
Yes, we had 4.3 in 2018. So we have already gone 90% of your target in 18. But now after post-COVID, we see a great opportunity. Already what we are seeing, the results in the last 2 months, is that people are staying longer and spending more. So we still haven't identified why the reason behind that, but that has been the trend. So because more people are going for wellness kind of hotels, and more people are spending time outdoors, like visiting safari camps, going to the beaches and all that. Maybe people are kind of fed up of staying indoors for the last 1.5 or 2 years. They want to break free and be close to nature. So these are like habits that we have observed in the last 2.5 months, and in that respect, Sri Lanka has a lot to offer. So therefore, I believe that tourism will bounce back. There was a question I saw in the chat group that tourism is the only way for exports. No, tourism is not the only way, but tourism is one of the main stays for export earnings or foreign currency generation in Sri Lanka, because we have a fantastic product which we can beat most of the regional competitors very easily if we market it properly. So that's why I said about nation branding is so vital for tourism and for all the other export industries. But my last one, I would like to leave one thought with you. Look at Vietnam. They were fighting a guerrilla war for decades. But today their net export value is nearly $50 billion. And they are mainly manufacturer-based. Of course, they do have a fantastic tourism product as well, but they are manufacturing for China. So likewise, if we can work out bilateral deals where our manufacturing base mainly had been garments, we should go for other value-added industries, in my opinion, and look at other manufacturing, consumer products for export in the region.
Thank you, Sanath. Before I hand over to Professor Vatawala, one final question to the entire panel. We have a vision of doubling our exports, right? What is the one big thing that must happen for us to get there? Can I start with Suresh?
Value addition.
Okay. Jehan?
It's a toss-up between capacity, getting the right numbers, and country branding. Possibly might go with capacity.
Capacity, okay. Jagat?
I think, I don't know whether the rest of the panelists will agree with me, but as I said before, we need to liberalize. This restrictive environment is not going to be conducive. So we need to invite everyone to come and, come with money, not just everyone with, fly-by-nights, but then, somebody who can bring in a threshold and then, invest here. So to do that, we need to open out.
Okay. Dr. Kulatunga?
In the case of rubber industry, the technological transfers and more contribution to R&D.
Okay. Ganesh?
I think building confidence in the country by having stable and consistent policy, listening to the private sector before making drastic decisions. These things will, and of course, unshackle, in other words, liberalization, as Jagat said. So these are, the underlying pointers, I would say.
Okay. Sanath, you can have the last word.
Yeah, I would also agree. Consistent government policy is first priority. And number two is the legal reforms. Today, it takes 17 years or more to get a case heard. I think we need to change that if you are to invite, attract serious investors into the country.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dinesh. I think it was a very, very interesting discussion. I'm sure, although we have gone past the time, I could not stop anything because this was really of great importance. So let me thank everyone, but let me just say one or two things, looking at what was really spoken of. I think the integrated thinking and integrated reporting that we have been promoting, because unless there is an integrated approach, listening to all of you all, we need to like even the brand building and others. So I feel that has to come where the integrated approach, where all ministries are concerned, all exports are concerned, where we can do it. Sharad was saying how they have got the garment industry together. So similarly, I think there has to be a voice which will really bring everyone together. So that's one thing. But the most important thing, of course, why the private sector is successful now, even with the COVID-19 pandemic. If you look at the results of most of the companies, they have been doing extremely well. So what is the reason for that? The reason is the good management. Good management, that's the most important thing. So even for our country, good management is very, very essential. If not for that, that will not be there, like maybe the consistent policies that you are talking of. So I think these are two things that I thought that I will just say, but I think, of course, I think Suresh mentioned of born in Sri Lanka. You have to think of born in Sri Lanka because we had born in Vietnam and other people coming and sending our spices, So this is something that is really spoiled our name, We are getting incentives maybe from other countries on the free trade agreement, and we are importing things illegally from other countries and saying made in Sri Lanka. So born in Sri Lanka has to be maintained if we are to really succeed. So let me thank all our speakers. I think Mr. Suresh Dimel, the chairman of the Export Development Board, because you have really laid this pathway as to what has to be done by the private sector, but this has to be continued. This cannot become where we just speak and say this is what is there, but you, as I said, on the integrated thinking and integrated approach, you have to get all the exporters together. I think the BOI should come in a big way, although they are not here, because BOI has, I think, the largest number of exporters, because all the apparel exporters are under that, because in 91 we converted everyone to the BOI sector, and then they removed all the shackles that they were having, and they were able to expand and do very well. And today, I think even Sharad is in so many other countries, and they are in really top of the world. So that then also I must thank Dr. Gurutunga Rajapaksa, because very important points, especially in the industry, because today what we heard is even the bilateral agreements are going only for imports. But let us bring this concept, and they should put it into that, in the bilateral trade agreements, that there should be a certain amount of exports, and the concessions that are given, what was told of Bangladesh, other countries going ahead. Maybe even we are talking of Vietnam, I'm sure they are getting a lot of very many more concessions than Sri Lanka, So they are having the GSP preferences. So everyone will go there, all investors will go, and they will expand, So then, Jehan, I think that this is really, as I said, like the 200 garment factories, if you can take it throughout the country, don't ask the government, the private sector will do it, because 200 garment factories, only we gave all the support from the government side. We gave incentives, we gave Benz cars, we gave everything that was there, but you all are the people who came and invested. So I think private sector can really do it, because they will not only educate them, but also bring the industry and make the Sri Lanka real export hub, and with the knowledge economy coming in. Then, of course, Ganesh, Iswaran, the tea sector has been doing very well. You spoke of the plantation sector. That is very important, because I must say, with the incentives that are given after the BOI coming in, we gave it to the industrial sector. But the plantation sector was not given. That is how even your tea exports, you all came. At that time, there were a lot of subsidies given for the tea bagging industry. A lot of them came in. now we have to give it to the plantation industry, because unless we do that, we will find that all the plantations will be uprooted and they will we will not have the plantation industry. It was mentioned about the rubber industry. If we are to increase it, so we have to give all the incentives now to the plantation industry, and maybe the industries would benefit. Of course, on the transport and logistics, I think Jagat really mentioned the key areas, and I'm indeed happy to see how you all have been handling it, how you all have been helping the exporters to do this. Unfortunately, the high prices are affecting some of them, but still they have been going on, and the efficient manner in which you all have been doing, you all are having branches in various countries. So this has really helped. And I'm sure that the people in the government sector and others should really know what the public sector is doing. I think if Chairman EDB, you must give more exposure to the private exporters who are bringing this valuable foreign exchange. You gave the export awards, but you have to give much more than that. You have to give much more, and then maybe the finance ministry and others will open their eyes that is the way that they can take it forward. Then Sanat, I know that it's a very, very difficult time, but you have been fighting very hard. Of course, you can't fight the corona. Unfortunately, corona has overtaken you all, but now with the vaccines coming in, and I think that's something the government has been able to do well. Now, like the health industry where they did this, they must do it for the exports also. Have a separate area, sector, or someone in charge who will be able to drive the exports, because that is where the foreign exchange is coming. So they did a similar thing for the health sector, and then brought in the vaccines. They are able to manage it well. Of course, there have been various other things, but definitely people will now be able to go to work, and then even though the COVID is there, they'll be able to see how they can overtake it. So I think on the whole, and of course, Dinesh, I think you did an excellent job. Although our time was running out, we still were able to, I think, direct very, very excellent questions to our speakers and panelists, which really brought our conclusions to a very, very high level, I must say. So thank you very much, Dinesh. You have been doing that always, and also you are also our fellow member. So thank you very much for all the support you have given. So let me once again thank everyone, and also all our participants. I think a lot of them have been staying on, although the time was past, because of the importance of this subject, So I'm sure that Suresh, you are the only government authority here. You are the one in charge of exports. So I hope you're also from the private sector. I'm sure that you will take this message to the higher ups and also follow this up. And as I said, the integrated approach should be there to make it a success. So let me thank everyone, and also from CMA, because as I said, we are really the National Professional Management Accounting Body. We will be able to help in the costing area, the management area, so financial management, so all these areas, I'm sure we will be able to do everything to take the exports to a higher level and rid the country of this debt, and our theme, which was getting over the debt problem. Thank you very much, and have I think, celebrate the new year, the independence, with this thinking that we have done today, which will certainly take Sri Lanka to a new level. And also, let me wish all of you a very happy weekend, as this is a very long weekend. Thank you, and good night to all. Thanks, Jagat. Thank you very much. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Suresh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Thank you all. Good night.
So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Jihan. Thanks, all the others, Dr. Kulatunga, and all our speakers. So we will now knock off.